Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and welcome to today's video, which is my bi-monthly wrap up for the months of July and August. We're going to be chatting about some reading stats from these 2 months of reading, the videos that I've published and the books that I've read throughout those 2 months. I will give some book reviews for any of the books that I didn't already feature in those reading vlogs. And then last but not least, we'll talk about my progress towards my yearly goals at this point in the year. So if that sounds good to you, stick around. I'm gonna get right into it because this tends to be kind of a long video. We are going to start with my July reading stats. So in July, I finished 11 books and I DNF'd 1 book that I can remember. Of those 11 books that I finished, 8 of them were read for videos and 3 of them were just for fun. As far as my genre breakdown goes for those 11 books, 5 of the books were all dystopian genre, which is heavily skewed because in July is when I read the 5 books in the Hunger Games series, which of course I did reading vlogs for, and I'll talk about those later. But that definitely skews some of my stats, which you'll see continue. I also read 3 mystery, thriller, or horror books. I read 1 contemporary book, 1 historical fiction, and 1 nonfiction. As far as my ratings breakdown, in July, I had probably my best reading month ever from a ratings perspective. I had 0 1-star books, 0 2-star books, 3 3-star books, 3 4-star books, and 5 5-star books. That is for sure the most 5-star books I've ever had in a month before. Again, heavily skewed from that Hunger Games series, but my average rating for the month of July was 4.18 stars. As far as author demographics, 7 of the 11 books I read were written by female identifying authors, 4 were by male identifying. 5 of the 11 books were written by non-white authors, 6 of them of course then being white. And there was some form of diverse representation present in 5 of the 11 books. And for me to consider a book to have diverse representation, I count anything from LGBTQ representation or main characters that are of a diverse race or ethnicity, as well as disability representation, translated works, things like that. All of those count in my mind. And the final stat for July is the publishers that I read from. 6 of the 11 books were published by one of the big 5 publishers. So 2 HarperCollins, 1 Macmillan, 1 Penguin Random House, 1 Hachette, and 1 Simon & Schuster. And then 5 books were published by independent presses or publishers. I did publish 3 reading vlogs in July. 2 of them were Hunger Games themed, like I mentioned. In one video, I featured the original trilogy, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. I rated every single one of those books 5 stars, so please go and watch that video if you haven't watched it yet and if that interests you. It is spoiler filled, so know that before going in, that you should either have already read these books or come to terms with the fact that you never will, or just that you're okay with being spoiled. And then in another vlog, I did the Hunger Games prequels, so The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise on the Reaping. Ballad I rated 3 stars and Sunrise I rated 5 stars. Again, my full thoughts, spoilers, and everything are in that second reading vlog. The third reading vlog that I published in July was a book of the month reading vlog where I finished 3 books and had my 1 DNF. So the books I finished were King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby, which I gave 3 stars, Liquid by Mariam Ramani, which I gave 3 stars, and The Lion Women of Tehran by Barjan Kamali, which I gave 5 stars. And then the book that I DNF'd is Silver Elite by Danny Francis. If you want those thoughts, you can go to that video. And then there are 3 books that I also read in July that I haven't talked about anywhere else in reading vlogs or anything, so I can give reviews for them now. 2 of them are by the same author, and they are Strange Houses and Strange Pictures by an author named Uketsu, which actually is like an anonymous author. He has a mask in his author photo, and I guess he remains anonymous online and everything. I think he actually makes YouTube videos. Haven't watched them, but very interesting that he is anonymous. But these are both mystery thriller kind of horror books that were written in Japanese and have recently been adapted to English. And they both have some very cool, very visual elements to them. So I'll start with Strange Houses because this is the one that I read first. I actually read both of these books alongside a bunch of people from Katie Colson's Patreon, which was very fun. I also highly recommend reading these books with other people so you can talk about them and develop theories and chat reactions because it's just so fun. But Strange Houses is about this house that is discovered to have a very strange floor plan. And the very first page of this book says, "This is a floor plan of a certain house. Do you see anything strange about it? At first glance, it probably looks totally normal, like a house anyone might live in. But if you look very closely, you might notice things here and there that seem somehow off. Those off details pile up and link together to lead to one inescapable truth. a truth so terrifying you won't want to believe it. So this book is literally just the exploration of this particular house and its weird floor plan and all of the secrets that are hidden within this house, as well as some other houses that are also brought into the mix. And this is the type of book that is very hard to explain and it's hard to set expectations for. I would most closely relate it to Confessions by Kanai Minato, if you've read that, also a Japanese translated book. Similarly to that book, this is the type of book that I would recommend not trying to think too deeply about. I mean, forming theories is fine, but like you're probably not going to be able to predict everything that happens. So I recommend just going into it with wide open expectations and be ready to just go along for the ride and enjoy the ride and have fun with it, because it just goes in some wild directions and takes some pretty substantial leaps in like logic or in deductions that one human probably wouldn't be able to make. But it's so fun in this book to just discover the secrets about these houses and go on the wild ride. Same for Strange Pictures. This is about a person who discovers a set of strange illustrations. I'll just show you one of them. I guess this one by itself is not all that strange. Okay, and I can show you a couple more from early on in the book. By themselves, they're not all that strange, but again, this book similarly takes you down this rabbit hole of this story of these strange pictures that once they're all put together and you find out the story behind them and who drew them and everything going on, it's just a wild ride. And so I so thoroughly enjoyed reading these books. I ended up rating them both 4 stars. I couldn't give them a full 5 stars because to me, the like leaps in logic, sometimes it's tough for me to get behind, but because I knew that that's what these were, I was able to mentally prepare myself a little bit better, I think. And now I'm fully hooked. I do believe this author has another book being translated very soon. I think it's called Strange Buildings. And I am going to be first in line to buy that book and read it and discuss it with my friends. These were just a really, really fun and memorable experience. So I loved that. And then the other book that I read in July and haven't reviewed yet here on my channel is called Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I don't have a physical copy of this one because I did listen to just the audio on Libby and I did not obtain the physical copy afterwards. But this is a nonfiction book about the history of the disease of tuberculosis, along with how it actually affects people present day and how so many people think this is like an ancient problem or a third world disease, but actually it affects people everywhere. And not only that, but it's so ingrained in culture and products we use and phrases we say that none of us probably have any idea about. I definitely didn't. But this is just a nice little book that kind of puts it all together. It doesn't necessarily offer a solution to this super deadly disease, but it does offer some background and context to it, and I really enjoyed it. I had seen a lot of good reviews for this book before picking it up. Based on the title and description alone, it probably wouldn't have been something I would have read on my own, but I heard that it was unexpectedly super interesting, so I decided to give it a whirl, and I have to agree. I also rated this one 4 stars. I, again, would say it wasn't life-changing, but it was well worth the few hours that it took to listen to the book. All right, and then with that, I can move right along to August, during which I finished 8 books and DNF'd 3. Of the 8 books that I finished, 7 of them I read for videos and only 1 was for fun. The genre breakdown, I read 4 historical fiction books, 1 contemporary, 1 mystery thriller, 1 sci-fi, and 1 nonfiction. It was, interestingly, a very historical fiction heavy month. Not even including the 3 books that I DNF'd, 2 of those were also historical fiction, which is interesting. As far as my star ratings in August, I had 0 1-star books, 1 2-star, 2 3 stars, 3 4 stars, and 2 5 stars, for an average rating of 3.75, which is a little bit closer to my normal average, I would say, but I am happy with that. As far as author demographics go, 7 of the 8 books I finished were written by female identifying authors. 4 of the books were written by non-white authors, 4 of course then by white authors, and there was some sort of diverse representation in 6 of the 8 books that I read. And last but not least, all 8 books that I read were published by one of the big 5 publishers. So 3 were HarperCollins, 3 were Penguin Random House, and 2 were Simon & Schuster. I did publish 2 reading vlogs in August. One was a vlog where I read until I found a 5-star book. And I did end up reading quite a few books within that video until I found that 5-star. I started with This Book Might Be About Zinnia by Brittany Morris. I unfortunately only gave this book 2 stars. Then I read The Scammer by Tiffany D. Jackson and gave that one 4 stars. I read The Rebel Girls of Rome by Jordyn Taylor and gave that one 4 stars. I read The Tatami Galaxy and gave that book 3 stars. And then I finally read Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and that was my 5-star book of the video. Within that video, I did also try to read Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson, and that was one of my DNFs of the month. And if you want more thoughts on any of those books that I just mentioned, I will have that reading vlog linked below, so you can go ahead and check that out if you missed it when it was originally posted. The other video I published in August was another book of the month vlog in which I completed 2 books and I DNF'd 2 books. The books that I completed were The Names by Florence Knapp, which I rated 3 stars, and What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown, which I gave 4 stars. And the 2 books that I DNF'd were 6 Days in Bombay by Alka Joshi and The Griffin Sisters' Greatest Hits by Jennifer Weiner. And then, like I mentioned, just one book that I read in August that I haven't talked about yet, and that is Someday Now by Tembi Locke. This is a nonfiction book. It is a memoir written by this author who I believe is an actress. I don't know her from acting, but I do know her from her previous memoir, and that book was her memoir of her experience losing her husband and traveling to, I think, Italy to meet her late husband's family. And that book was very fresh in her feelings of grief. She also has a daughter, and that was early on in her daughter's life. This book is her follow-up memoir several years later. That is kind of her, hopeful redemption story. I don't know, redemption isn't the right term, but she gets to give her perspective now as it's been several years since that first memoir was published. Her daughter is now going to college. She has remarried since the loss of her husband. And again, they are doing a trip to Italy, not only to revisit some of the things that she did in grieving her husband, but also to give her family like a new experience. And like I said, her daughter's going off to college, so it's kind of their last trip together before she sends her daughter off to live on her own. And this was just such a good memoir. I have recently really come to love memoirs that are just like a specific moment in time. I mean, I guess that's kind of what memoirs are by definition, as opposed to like a biography, which is by definition a person's entire life. I just love that memoirs can give some perspective and tell a story of a very specific formative moment in somebody's life. And I love for this author that she got to do that not only once, but twice. And through this book, we get to see her evolve so much. And we get to see how complicated life is and how much of a roller coaster it is. Like, there are such high highs and such low lows. And when you're going through something like grief, of course you experience all of that, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it was just really nice to get that perspective through her. This audiobook was also particularly well done because this author, first of all, narrates it herself, which is always best case scenario for memoirs, in my opinion. But also on this trip that she went on with her daughter and her new husband, she brought a recorder along with her. And so within the audiobook, there are several different snippets of her travels and some voices from some of the people she's around. And it just gave the audiobook such a like wholesome, cozy vibe because we really were brought into that experience and could hear the actual sounds of what she was doing. So I just absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. If you did already read that first memoir, I totally recommend this follow-up. If you haven't read that first one, I do think I would recommend going back and listening to that one first, listening or reading that one physically if it has a physical version. This one I think might be audio only, but yeah, I would recommend reading both of them if that topic at all sounds interesting to you. If you know this author as an actress, then even more so you might be invested, but I can wholeheartedly say that I loved it without knowing her as a famous person otherwise. And I gave this book 5 stars. So I really did love it, and it was a great kind of way to wrap up my August month of reading. All right, so now we can get into a goal update. This is something I like to do in every single bi-monthly wrap up in order to just check in and get a grasp of how I'm doing towards my yearly goals that I set obviously at the beginning of the year, because sometimes it's hard to keep track of. And actually every 2 months when I calculate these goals or my progress towards these goals, I'm interested and usually surprised to find out which ones I actually am on track for and which ones I have work to do to catch up on, because it doesn't always match my perception of how I think I'm doing. So I love doing this, and now that we are in the 9th month of the year, I only have 4 months now to really start finishing up and closing out these goals. So let's go through what my 10 goals are. So my first goal is the total books that I want to read in the year of 2025, my Goodreads goal, if you will, and I set this goal at 120. As of the end of August, we are 2/3 through the year. So these goals should be at 66.67% or higher, unless otherwise specified. A couple of these are a little different, but as of the end of August, I have finished 82 books, which is 68.33% of the way towards my goal. So I am perfectly on track, and this goal is green. My second goal for the year is the total number of workouts I want to complete, and I also set that at 120. And let me just say, July and August were not good on the workout front. I think I recorded like 4 total workouts within these 2 months. So as of the end of August, I am at 46 out of 120, which is only 38.33% of the way towards my goal. So we're gonna call that one red. I am going to have to do some serious work to catch up on this one. I do want to, and I do have that number of days left, so I can get back on track with my workout goal. It's just gonna require some serious motivation and willpower on my side. But now that summer is winding down, I do think I will be getting back into a little bit better of a routine, especially on weekends. So I'll do my best. My third goal for the year is to read at least 40% from non-white authors. And I'm super happy to say that 36 of the 82 books that I've read have been written by non-white authors, which is 43.9%. So that is above that 40% threshold that I want to stay above the whole year. So that is green. As well as my fourth goal, which is to have at least 50% of the books I read feature some sort of diverse representation. As of the end of August, 45 of the 82 books have, which is 54.88%. So that is above the 50% threshold that I want to maintain. So that is also green. My fifth goal is for 25% or less of the books that I read to be in the mystery or thriller genres. I explained this in my goals video, but I just want to saturate my reading less with these genres so that they can hopefully start to feel a little bit more special, a little bit more original. And as of the end of August, 18 of the 82 books that I read were mystery thrillers, which is 21.95%. So that is below the 25% threshold, which is green. Then my sixth goal is for 25% or more of the books that I read to be either historical fiction or nonfiction books. This is the one where I really thought I was making some good progress towards this goal, especially in August, again, because so many of the books that I read were historical fiction. But as of the end of August, I have read 10 historical fictions and 9 nonfictions to make 19 total out of 82. That is 23.17%. So I am just below that 25% threshold that I want to maintain. So I am very close. I'm going to consider this goal yellow. And I think with some intentionality, I can for sure hit this goal by the end of the year. My seventh goal is to publish 15 vlogs in my Book of the Month Aardvark or ARC reading vlog series. I did make up some progress on this goal as well, but I still so far am only at 7 out of the 15 goal, which is 46.67%. Again, that should be around 66.67%, so I'm still quite a ways away. I do have a lot of ground to make up here, so I'm going to consider this goal red. However, I talked about in my previous wrap up how I have done a number of vlogs in other series for my channel that I do believe are of the spirit of this goal, but for accuracy's sake, we're not going to count them towards it. Okay, my eighth goal is to post 52 videos to my channel in total. So far, I'm at 29 out of 52, which is 55.77%. Not quite on track, but not quite as much ground to make up either, so we're considering it yellow. As well as my ninth goal, which is to read 25 5-star books by the end of the year. So far I'm at 16 out of 25, which is 64% of the way towards that goal. That is very, very close. That's only 2% off. So we're considering that yellow, and I hope as long as I can keep my luck up, because that is a goal that's somewhat out of my control. If I keep having the luck that I'm having with 5-star books lately, I do have a good chance of completing that one. And then my 10th and final goal was to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And let me just say, at the time of my previous bi-monthly wrap up, which was at the end of June, I was super not on track for this goal, which was totally fine. This is another goal that I kind of recognized was pretty out of my control. I wanted to set the goal because it was kind of fun. It's fun to stretch yourself. And also I did believe that if I took the actions like post with consistency, post content that I'm proud of, that I would give myself the best chance possible to hit this goal, but I knew it wasn't a guarantee. And like I said, I was off track just 2 months ago. But now I'm in a completely different situation. I am over 6,000 subscribers. So I have overachieved my goal. I'm at 120% of this goal. We can consider it complete for the year. And this segues me into my last thing to say, which is just a big thank you to all of the new subscribers to my channel, of which there have been many by my standards. Also to my subscribers who have been here for 5 years or 4 years or 3 years or 2 years or 1 year. Thank you so much for being here. It is very fun to see a goal like that be achieved, especially unexpectedly partway through the year. I don't really know what happened. I did happen to catch the algorithm at I think a good time, but I guess I just proved myself right in what I just said about posting content I'm proud of, posting consistently. I always knew that YouTube growth is not always perfectly linear, and I can see that right now with my subscriber graph. So all that to say, very big thank you. Very happy and proud to have that goal officially completed for the year. And to be honest, I do feel pretty good about the status of all of my goals. Do I think I'm going to hit every single one of them by the end of the year? I'm not sure, but I am well on my way for the majority of them. So I feel really, really good about that. And honestly, I'm just gonna keep on doing what I'm doing for these last 4 months of the year, and we'll see where my stats end up. But that is all that I have for this video. Please let me know if you enjoyed. Let me know if you like seeing the reading stats or what your favorite part of a wrap-up video like this is. Let me know how you're doing on your reading goals or any other goals that you have set for yourself for the year. And other than that, I don't think I have anything else. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.